The Battle of the Little Bighorn, commonly called Custer's Last Stand, stands as one of the United States' most significant defeats, marking a moment in history that isn't considered one of America's finest hours. The Battle of the Little Bighorn was one of the shortest battles. Within an hour, hundreds of U.S. soldiers were murdered near the Little Bighorn River, modern-day Montana. The battle had its roots in a territorial dispute over the Western Territory, with the Sioux, Cheyenne, and other tribes of Native Americans on one side, and the U.S. military forces on the other. On the 25th of June, 1876, a force of over 200 U.S. soldiers, under the command of Colonel George Armstrong Custer, advanced toward the Little Bighorn River to confront the Native Americans. Despite Custer's expectations, he was unprepared for the extent of the loss he was about to face. In reality, he never stood a chance against the Native Americans, who had assembled a larger army, hence the moniker Custer's Last Stand. Throughout the years, some have described this battle as a massacre, while others have labeled it a needless slaughter. However, it's essential to learn the historical background of the rift between both parties to understand the events leading to the Great Sioux War. This story goes beyond the slaughter of Custer and his men. It covers the events that led up to the Battle of Little Bighorn and its aftermath. Hello there, lovely viewers. Welcome back to Native Journals. Brace yourself as you embark on an educational and engaging journey back to the heart of the 19th century during the Great Sioux Wars. In this intriguing episode of Native Journals, we're stepping into history to unravel the epic tale of the Battle of Little Bighorn, famously known as Custer's Last Stand. We'll introduce you to the heroes and leaders of this battle, explore the events that led up to it, and take a closer look at the figure, Colonel George Custer. If you're as eager as we are to dive into this captivating story, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button, show us some love with a thumbs up, and let's embark on this thrilling adventure together. Without further ado, let's head into the business of the day. To this day, the Battle of the Little Bighorn is an enduring symbol of resistance against the United States government in American history. This historic battle led to the death of Colonel Custer and over 200 U.S. soldiers. It's essential to understand that the Native American tribes didn't engage in needless slaughter. The battle's roots can be traced back to a broken treaty. The Sioux and Cheyenne tribes of Native America inhabited the Great Plains, which served as their last refuge in the U.S. Before this, European settlers had colonized the country and seized control of most lands to the west. This led to some Native American tribes settling in the Great Plains before the Civil War. The Great Plains, which encompassed 10 modern-day states in America and 3 provinces in Canada, were known for their favorable climate and the presence of rocky mountains. However, after the Civil War concluded in April 1865, large parts of the country were ruins and suitable lands became scarce. In response, the U.S. government turned its attention to the Great Plains as a potential solution. They attempted to negotiate with Native American settlers, offering deals in exchange for their lands. However, most settlers rejected these offers, as they would have to leave their homes. Undeterred, the U.S. government built structures and railroads across the plains, setting the stage for an impending conflict between the Native Americans and the U.S. government. This led to resistance from the settlers, but the U.S. government responded by killing Native Americans. By the end of the 1860s, most Native American tribes were driven out of the Great Plains into Indian reservations. Some settlers settled in their new lands to avoid the same fate as the other Native American tribes. However, leaders of the Sioux tribe, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, resisted being confined to the Indian reservations. They believed the U.S. government wanted to move the settlers to the Indian reservations to exert control, which was true. The U.S. government responded to the Sioux leaders by destroying their means of livelihood. The Native Americans raised buffaloes for their daily activities and survival. They used various parts of buffaloes to create jewelry, construct homes, sew clothes, and act as food sources. However, the U.S. government eliminated hundreds of buffaloes in the region to establish its authority. This action escalated tensions and infuriated the Sioux leaders. The government also carried out devastating and catastrophic attacks on the hunters and settlers who attempted to protect the lives of the buffaloes, regardless of their age or gender. In 1866, the U.S. government's actions provoked a violent response from the settlers, who captured and killed some U.S. officials responsible for these unnecessary killings. Tensions had reached a boiling point on both sides, leading to a significant conflict. It was during this period, by the end of 1866, that Colonel Custer arrived on the scene. Born on the 5th of December, 1839, In New Rumley, Ohio, George Armstrong Custer was a U.S. Army soldier. He participated in the First Battle of Bull Run and Gettysburg during the American Civil War. Throughout the war, Custer's rank advanced from cadet to major general. He demonstrated himself as a formidable warrior and leader, showcasing bravery and critical thinking skills. In 1866, Custer was promoted to the rank of lieutenant colonel, and he led hundreds of soldiers in battles against Native Americans during the ongoing conflict. He achieved victory in a battle against the Cheyenne village. During this engagement, Custer recognized that the ongoing conflict differed from fighting Confederate troops in the Civil War, as the Native Americans had a profound understanding of how to use the plains to their advantage. Although Custer's forces won the battle, the Native American settlers' familiarity with the terrain made it challenging for Custer's army, and they presented formidable opponents due to their speed and knowledge of the land. To end the conflict, the U.S. government entered a treaty called the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868. This treaty granted the Sioux tribe lands encompassing the Black Hills, a region in modern-day South Dakota. It was a mutually agreed-upon accord between the United States and Native American tribes, granting the Native Americans authority over territories in South Dakota, Wyoming, and Nebraska. The treaty also allowed the U.S. government to penalize anyone who breached the agreement, including white people. In 1874, a military expedition led by Lieutenant Colonel Custer was dispatched to construct a fort in the Black Hills region. However, instead of establishing a fort, they stumbled upon gold in the Black Hills. According to the 1868 treaty, they had no right to claim these lands, as it was within the Sioux reservations. Custer reported this discovery to the U.S. government, and in response, they attempted to negotiate the purchase of the Black Hills. However, the people of the Sioux reservations declined to sell the land, considering it sacred and refusing to part with it. While this wasn't Custer's initial encounter with Sioux leaders, as in 1873, he confronted the Sioux army led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse during the Northern Pacific Railroad survey. A significant turning point came in 1876. The U.S. government, frustrated by their inability to remove Native American settlers and claim the Black Hills, issued a controversial order that violated the earlier treaty. This order, issued on January 31, 1876, required all settlers to return to the Indian reservations initially designated for them. Failure to comply with this order would result in being labeled as hostile by the U.S. government. The U.S. government assigned Custer to relocate the Native Americans back to the reservations. However, this order triggered a strong reaction among settlers in the Black Hills region and those within the Indian reservations. This backlash led to the leaders of the Sioux tribes preparing for battle, and thousands of settlers from beyond the Black Hills joined their cause. The Indian warriors eventually established a camp along the banks of the Little Bighorn River. The Sioux leaders, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, gathered a formidable army prepared to go to war against the U.S. government. Natives from various regions of the Indian reservations united in March 1876 to resist the U.S. government and reclaim the lands taken from them. Observers noted that the native army was one of the largest they had ever witnessed. The warriors were motivated by a desire for revenge for their losses and freedom from U.S. government control. However, to ensure their victory in the upcoming battle, they strategically separated and positioned their military camps close to each other around the Little Bighorn River. With a total of around 7,000 warriors, there were at least 7 camps in this region. The Cheyenne tribe was located to the north, the Sioux to the south, the Hunkpapans, a tribe under the Sioux, to the southernmost part of the region, and the Sanak Brule, Konju, Santi, and Oglala tribes were positioned between them. These warriors were also armed with 5 Arapaho warriors on their side. In addition to their traditional weapons, such as bows, arrows, and tomahawks, the Native American warriors were equipped with Winchester, Henry, and Spencer rifles. Aside from being a war chief, Sitting Bull was recognized as a medicine man. He performed rituals to ensure his victory in previous battles. In preparation for the upcoming fight with the U.S. government, Sitting Bull performed the Sundance Ritual, an annual sacred ritual by Native American men. The purpose of this ritual is to establish a connection with deities beyond the physical realm. However, the ritual takes an unusual form as the man performing it inflicts pain upon himself. Sitting Bull performed the Sundance Ritual in the Rosebud River Valley by painting himself yellow. This represented the sun. During the ritual, he tore open his arm and cut out 100 pieces of his flesh, causing him to bleed until he lost consciousness. This extreme act was intended to seek spiritual guidance from the deities and take a glimpse into the upcoming battle. After waking up, Sitting Bull and his men danced continuously for 2 days as a form of reverence to the deities. As a result, Sitting Bull had a vision in which the soldiers and horses of the US Army lay lifeless on the ground, indicating victory for the native tribes. However, the vision also came with a warning. None of the soldiers should take anything from fallen comrades, as doing so would bring calamity upon the entire Native American community. This warning was taken seriously by the people, but Sitting Bull's vision provided them with courage and alleviated the fear among the warriors. Significantly, the Sitting Bull Sun Dance is still practiced to this day to honor Sitting Bull's legacy. In June 1876, upon learning about the Native American warriors, the US government dispatched groups of soldiers, including Custer and his men. Their mission was to confront the native warriors, apprehend their leaders, and compel the remaining Native Americans to return to the designated reservations. Alongside Custer, the troops were under the command of General Alfred Terry and Colonel John Gibbon. Due to Custer's familiarity with the terrain in this region, he could quickly locate the native warriors. Consequently, he and his soldiers advanced on the main US Army. Custer's initial objective was to conduct surveillance of the Little Bighorn region to pinpoint the Native American warrior camps. The plan was to catch them off guard and initiate a surprise attack, minimizing their chances of putting up a strong defense. On June 25th, Custer successfully identified the locations of their camps and immediately sent a message to the US Army requesting reinforcements. The leaders of the US Army instructed Custer to have his men encircle the native camps while awaiting backup. However, upon observing the layout of the Native American camps, Custer decided to launch an unexpected assault. He began by engaging and killing the few native individuals he encountered along the way, which provoked the native people. Custer led a force of over 600 soldiers into the head-on battle. He carefully organized his troops into 4 groups, each with specific tasks. The first group, relatively more minor, with about 50 soldiers, was entrusted with the vital responsibility of securing the supply train point, thus ensuring the continuity of logistical support. The second and third groups, each consisting of a substantial number of soldiers, were under the command of Colonel Frederick Benteen and Major Reno. These soldiers were tasked with initiating a devastating attack from the southern flank of the Little Bighorn region and preventing the Native American forces from escaping the area. Custer's well-thought-out division of troops was integral to his strategy for confronting the conflict at Little Bighorn. Recognizing the need for comprehensive tactical awareness, Custer dispatched Benteen to conduct thorough scouting toward the southwest region. This was done to ascertain the absence of any additional native forces that might threaten their rear. Simultaneously, he ordered Reno to advance towards the west and launch an assault on the southern flank of the native camp. This strategic division of forces was part of Custer's plan to encircle and subdue the Native American encampment effectively. Custer assumed command of the final group, consisting of approximately 210 men, and devised a strategic plan to launch an assault from the northern front. While Custer prepared for his approach from the north, Reno's soldiers initiated the attack from the south. The Native American forces, initially caught off guard, swiftly rallied, retrieved their weapons, and mounted a counterattack. Reno's soldiers comprised of only 100 men, and they engaged in an intense battle with the natives. A notable figure among the native warriors, White Thunder, led his fellow tribe members to fight against Reno's soldiers. They skillfully maneuvered, encircling a small hill behind the American soldiers, pressuring their flanks. Crazy Horse, the renowned Native American leader, arrived at swiftly with reinforcements, significantly boosting the morale of the native forces. This unexpected reinforcement provided a critical advantage to the Native Americans and intensified the battle at Little Bighorn. Reno's soldiers, confronted on both flanks, retreated swiftly when they recognized the overwhelming odds against them. Natives pursued them relentlessly as they retreated uphill, and when they regrouped at the crest of the hill, now known as Reno Hill, they counted a grim tally of at least 30 fallen comrades. Meanwhile, Custer, riding northward at a gallop, came upon the Cheyenne camp, where he observed a predominantly female and child presence. In response, he split his forces, dispatching 2 companies to the west to relieve the mounting pressure on Reno's beleaguered troops. This strategic maneuver aimed to redirect the course of the battle and create a diversion. The other soldiers met up with Custer, and they all pressed northward. they kept looking for a path leading to the river to enable them to leave the place. As the sound of gunfire reached them, Bentine's men moved swiftly to rescue Major Reno and his soldiers, and their forces became one. Simultaneously, Crazy Horse led a group of warriors to the midpoint of the main camp. This strategic move was made to protect the camp from an impending attack coming from the north. Apprehensive about a potential second assault from the northern direction, they had observed soldiers moving in that direction on the other side of the river. Meanwhile, a small force of formidable Native American soldiers marched eastward under the leadership of White Thunder. As they advanced towards the east, more soldiers joined them. From their concealed positions in the tall grass, they opened fire on the American soldiers. A significant number of native soldiers emerged from the southern bank of the river, launching a fierce attack on both Reno and Bentine's forces. Faced with overwhelming odds, the soldiers fell back to higher ground. At this point, Custer's entire army was surrounded by the Native Americans. Unable to flee the scene, Custer and his forces took defensive positions and prepared for battle. Crazy Horse attacked Custer's men, breaking through their first and second lines of defense. Custer and his troops retreated to higher ground on the battlefield, where he ordered some soldiers to engage the Native American warriors approaching from a different direction. Native American leader Crazy Horse successfully encircled Custer's soldiers, attacking them from one side, causing chaos and heavy casualties. The soldiers under Custer's command suffered severe losses as they were overwhelmed by the Native American warriors. The situation became dire as the death toll rose drastically and the odds of Custer's victory became impossible. However, Custer was shot twice, leading to his instant death. Soldiers from Reno's army that escaped earlier during the attack before the Native American warriors overwhelmed Custer's troops witnessed the deaths of their comrades from a distance. After their comrades' deaths, the survivors observed the Native American warriors repeatedly shooting the lifeless bodies and taking items from them. This action contradicted Sitting Bull's warning, which stated that the Native American warriors should not take anything belonging to the fallen soldiers. The Native American warriors noticed the surviving soldiers of Reno's army and advanced to attack them. Just then, the long-awaited reinforcements for General Terry arrived and overwhelmed the Native American forces. The natives fled the battlefield and retreated to their initial reservations, marking the end of the Battle of the Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's last stand. The death toll on both sides was nearly 300 dead US soldiers and over 150 deceased Native Americans. Thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the content, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could share the video and show your support by liking and subscribing.